Okay, so Tuesday's lesson was distance and midpoint formula, and we started with the string activity. And I had you measure the string on the board. And a lot of you had your piece of string, and it was from 0 to 60. And you told me that your midpoint was 30. Okay? Which is good, which is exactly what I wanted you to do. And you said once you measured your distance of 60, you divided by 2 to get 30. Okay? So we went through and we said, okay, step 1, find your distance. So we find our distance. And then we talked about the that distance is always positive. You can show a positive sign and negative sign to show direction, whether it's going from left to right. But in math, we always, when we're working with distance, we say that it is always positive. Okay? So always positive, and we discussed how we make something always positive by using the absolute value of something. Okay? So if we want the absolute value of A is equal to A. So then once we found our distance, well, we said we had to divide it by 2. So step 2 was to take our distance and divide by 2. Okay, so and then our step 3, well, we didn't need a step 3 when we started at 0 because it was 0. So as long as we divided by 2, we got our midpoint. But we discussed that other example, and we had to do a step 3. Okay, so we had the other number line. And I said, okay, let's go from 5 to 15. And you could tell me just by looking at it that the midpoint was 10. But I said, well, how do we get there mathematically? Okay, so again, we had our step 1, which we needed our distance. Okay, and mathematically, once we applied our absolute value, we said, okay, we're going to call 5 our A point. And we're going to call B our 15. So 15 is our B. And our name for A is, we called it our start point. Okay, this is our start point. And B was our end point. Okay, and we went ahead and said, okay, let's create a formula for distance. So D is equal to our end point minus our start. Okay, and instead of using words, we used our letters. So we did B minus A. And that's how we got our distance formula. Okay, and that's one of the formulas that we need to know for the class. Step 2 was we took our distance and we divided by 2, like up here. But formula-wise, it was the absolute value of B minus A divided by 2. Okay, so that when we do that, now when we do our distance of this line, it would be 15 minus 5, and that would give us the absolute value of 10, and the absolute value of 10 is 10. And then we do our step 2, we do B minus A. So we have our 10, and we divide by 2, so we have 10 divided by 2, so that is equal to 5. So we know that our halfway point on our number line is 5. And then to do step 3, we had to add 5. We had to add this 5, which is our halfway distance, to our starting point to get our middle, which is our 10, which is our C, which is our midpoint. Okay, so we took this, and so we said start plus half our distance, and that was 5 plus 5. Ooh, my paper moved. Which gives us 10. Okay, so that's how we get the midpoint of a number line.